Ever feel like you're just drowning in crypto updates?
Yeah.
Trying to keep track of everything in digital finance, and you just wish someone would, well, cut through the noise.
Absolutely. It's a lot. And you just want to know what actually matters.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's our plan today. We're doing a deep dive into the SORA ecosystem. Some really interesting stuff happening there lately.
Yeah, we've been digging into it. We'll be covering the Fujiwara Testnet, a totally new way they're looking at XOR fees, some big moves in bridging, especially with TON, and this is pretty intriguing, a partnership with a sovereign nation.
Right. So for you listening, if you've seen the headlines but want the real story behind them, that's what we're here for. Think of it as getting the key insights without the overload.
Precisely. We'll unpack what these developments mean and, why you should probably pay attention.
Okay, great. And if you saw the summary notes, you've got a bit of a roadmap. Let's kick off with the Fujiwara Testnet. They're calling it a sandbox nation state. What's that all about?
Well, it's ambitious. Fujiwara isn't just your standard demo. It's a public playground for SORA v3, the next big version, and it's built on Hyperledger Iroha 2.
Okay, Iroha 2.
Yeah. And Sandbox Nation State kind of hints at the scale. They want it to be a place where you can really test complex, almost real-world financial setups all out in the open.
So it's more than just seeing if transactions go through.
Definitely. It's about simulating a whole economic environment, potentially.
And are we actually seeing how it's, performing yet? Is there data coming out?
There is, yeah. The Explorer telemetry, basically the dashboard showing network activity, is apparently about 80% complete already.
Oh, okay.
So right now you can see things like block times, how fast transactions are processed, finality lag, which is how long until they're irreversible, and peer uptime, so how reliable the computers running the network are.
That's pretty useful info.
It is. And importantly, the documentation for people who want to run validator nodes, the computers that secure the network that's already live, shows they want people involved early.
Gotcha. So what's coming up soon for Fujiwara? Anything concrete?
Yep, within about 2 weeks, they're saying. The full Explorer release, version 1.0.
And what will that add?
More detailed charts, like block-level stuff, and something called RPC autocomplete.
RPC autocomplete.
Yeah, it sounds a bit technical, but it basically makes it much easier for developers to interact with the network and build things on top of it, sort of like predictive text for coding on Aura.
Oh, okay. Developer tool.
Right. And also an open validator leaderboard is coming, so public rankings of node performance adds transparency.
So this isn't just for the tech enthusiasts then. It feels like a pretty big step in terms of openness.
Exactly. It's really the first chance for anyone, auditors, researchers, even just curious users to properly see Hara v3 working in public.
To kick the tires, basically.
Kick the tires, test performance, look for vulnerabilities, all before the main network launches. It's crucial for building trust, really.
Makes sense. And for you listening, if you want to see it, we'll have the link to the Explorer in the notes.
Definitely worth a look if you're interested.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about fees. There's a new XOR fee model coming in SORA v3. What's the big change?
The core idea is simplification. Basically, all transaction fees on SORA v3, whether you're doing a swap on PolkaSwap, adding liquidity, even voting in governance, everything will be paid in XOR.
Oh, interesting. So no more needing like KSM or ETH just for gas fees if you're interacting with ORCH assets.
That's the plan, just XOR. It should make the user experience much, much smoother.
I can see that. Less friction, especially for newcomers.
Exactly. You use XOR for your main activity, and you use XOR to pay the network costs for that activity. Plus, the idea is it creates organic demand for XOR itself. It becomes the necessary fuel.
Right, the utility token actually used for utility.
Precisely. And there's also a potential community proposal about maybe burning a tiny fraction of those fees.
Burning, like removing them from supply.
Yeah, maybe around 0.05% of fees collected. The idea would be to counteract any inflation from, say, future token issuance, kind of a deflationary pressure.
Interesting economic tweak. But that's not set in stone.
No, definitely not. That would require a full governance vote by XOR holders before it could happen on the mainnet. Community decides.
Got it. Okay, now, tied into this, there was mention of Runtime 4.6.0 and XOR repackaging. What's that about?
Right, so Runtime 4.6.0 is actually already live on the current network, SOR v2. It includes some groundwork for this XOR repackaging.
Repackaging, like changing the number of decimal places.
Sort of, yeah. Think of it like a stock split, or maybe when a country redenominates its currency. The example given was Maybe 1,000 old XOR become one new XOR.
Ah, okay. So your total value stays the same, but the number of tokens you hold changes. Why do that?
Couple of reasons. One is to just clean things up, get rid of token dust.
Those tiny fractions you can't really do anything with.
Exactly. It makes accounting simpler too, both for individuals and apps. And crucially, it helps when XOR is bridged to other chains.
Oh.
Makes the numbers more manageable, less like scientific notation with loads of zeros after the decimal point. Just more user-friendly numbers when you see XOR on, say, Ethereum or TON.
Okay, that makes sense. Practical change. And the final ratio isn't decided yet?
Not yet. The Tor's Council is expected to put forward a motion soon to set that final multiplier. Community will likely weigh in too.
All right, let's shift gears to bridging. Connecting SORA to other networks. The TON bridge seems to be making progress.
Yeah, the bridge to the open network, TON, is moving along nicely. Phase Y, I was basically proving the tech worked getting XOR to TON and back again via the command line.
Okay, the back-end stuff.
Right. Now, phase 2 is all about the front end, the user experience. They're integrating something called the Hashi interface.
Hashi, what does that do?
It's designed to make bridging super simple. The goal is a two-click experience, so no more needing to be comfortable with code or command prompts.
That's a big difference, just point and click.
Pretty much. But here's a really key part. Users coming from TON won't need to get XOR first, just to pay the gas fee on the SORA side.
Oh, how does that work?
The bridge itself will handle a small swap behind the scenes to cover that initial SORA transaction fee. It removes a major onboarding hurdle.
Wow, okay. That's quite clever. Because getting that first bit of gas token on a new chain is always a pain.
It really is. So this could apply not just to TON users, but potentially, users from Ethereum or Polkadot bringing assets over in the future. Big user experience win.
And connecting to TON specifically opens up that huge Telegram user base, right?
Potentially, yes. The numbers are massive, something like 749 million users mentioned. It's a huge potential audience for SORA and apps built on it.
So when can we expect this user-friendly bridge?
They're doing heavy testing now, liquidity stress tests, making sure it can handle volume, and a full security audit. Public launch is aimed for June, assuming all that goes well.
June. Okay, one to watch. Now, for something a bit more mysterious, this partnership with a sovereign nation, what can you actually tell us? It sounds very hush-hush.
And it is quite sensitive, yeah. There's an NDA-bound Memorandum of Understanding, an MU signed, so details are scarce.
So something is happening.
Oh, yes. The SORA core team is actively working with a central bank task force from this unnamed nation. Design workshops have started.
Workshops focused on what?
Two main things, apparently. Co-designing national savings bonds built on ORFAR and also wholesale CBDC rails.
Wholesale central bank digital currency. And savings bonds, backed by XOR liquidity.
That's the concept being explored, yes. Using XOR liquidity pools to underpin these national financial instruments.
That sounds huge. Groundbreaking, even.
Yeah.
But potentially risky, too, politically.
Absolutely. Anytime you're dealing with national governments and central banks, there are political sensitivities and risks involved. No doubt.
But the upside must be significant for SORA to pursue it.
Immense. It's a chance to test SORA's tech and network effects on a national scale in the real world. It could move SORA way beyond being just, another DeFi project.
Into actual national financial infrastructure.
Potentially, yes. That seems to be the long-term vision being tested here.
When might we hear more? Or even know which nation?
They've said a public announcement will come after the first major milestone clears compliance review. No firm date, but maybe something later this year. Q3 was mentioned as a possibility for the first reveal.
Okay, fascinating. We'll have to keep our ears open for that one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the builders on SORA. What kind of projects are emerging from the builder program?
It's pretty diverse, actually. Shows the platform's flexibility. You've got things like ADAR working on a supply chain oracle.
Tracking goods?
Yeah, verifying supply chain data on-chain. Then Ceres is doing interesting things with liquidity reallocation strategies within the ecosystem.
Optimizing yield or something?
Something like that. Managing liquidity flows more effectively. And there's Palmatrix's Palma Test Bot, which monitors network health. Apparently, it's got like 99.9% uptime, which is impressive.
So real tools and applications being built.
Exactly. And these are independent teams getting grants funded directly on-chain through SORA's governance to build their projects.
Does that grant program ongoing?
Yep. There's a new wave of RFPs, requests for proposals, coming up, and the community gets to vote on which projects get funded next.
So the community has real power there, and in other areas too. I saw a note about liquidity pool decisions.
Right, that was an interesting example of governance in action. Apparently, some wallets, even ones with a relatively small voting power, like only 180 vote weight mentioned, collectively decided not to change certain liquidity pool parameters.
So they chose to maintain the status quo.
Yeah, it showed a kind of pragmatic, decentralized decision-making process at work, the community actively participating in shaping things.
Interesting. Now, the source material also touched upon the bigger picture debate. CBDCs versus stablecoins. Where does SORA fit into that? Are they picking a side?
They seem to be taking a more neutral, infrastructure-focused approach, not really picking a side between CBDCs and stablecoins.
How so?
Their view seems to be, look, we're building the fundamental rails, the infrastructure for moving value and providing liquidity, whether it's a central bank digital currency or a private stablecoin that gains traction. They'll likely need efficient, neutral infrastructure like SORA to operate effectively.
So build the roads and let different types of cars drive on them.
That's a good analogy, yeah. They believe liquidity is fundamental regardless of the specific type of digital currency.
Did they address the common criticisms of CBDCs? Fears about frozen funds, government control?
They did, offering some nuance. While acknowledging those theoretical risks exist, they pointed out that, well, funds have been frozen in the stablecoin world too. It's not unique to CBDCs.
Fair point.
And they also mentioned that many live CBDC projects like Cambodia's Baikong or even China's ECNY aren't necessarily one single database controlled by the government. They often use consortium ledgers or more distributed setups.
So maybe not the all-seeing eye people sometimes imagine.
Perhaps not always. And they also made the point that in many democracies, monetary policy is often handled by bodies somewhat independent from elected politicians anyway. So SORA's position is essentially, let's provide robust, neutral tech and let the world figure out which forms of digital money work best. Both will likely need good plumbing.
Okay, that makes sense. So pulling all this together, what's the timeline we should be watching? Key dates for you, the listener, to keep in mind.
All right, let's recap the milestones. Fujiwara Explorer 1.0, that's expected on or before May 11th, 2025. That's coming from the iRoha2 team.
Okay, next year for that one. What about sooner?
The referendum, the vote on the XOR fee model, look for that in late May of this year. That's SOR, Council and Community Voters.
Got it. And the TON bridge.
The public beta for the TON bridge is targeting June. That's the Bridge Guild's responsibility.
Okay. The Sovereign Pilot.
First milestone reveal for the Sovereign Pilot sometime in Q3 this year. Depends on SORA Core and their government partners, plus compliance.
And the wallet?
Wallet V4, the one with cross-chain swaps built in, also aiming for Q3. That's the Wallet Squad.
And finally, the mainnet launch, SORA V3 itself.
Mainnet V3 Genesis candidate. The target is Q4, but the timeline is tellingly noted as when it's boring.
When it's boring.
Meaning when it's thoroughly tested, stable, reliable, and there are no surprises. Focus on stability over speed. Everyone's responsible for that one.
Right, makes sense for critical infrastructure, so quite a busy roadmap ahead.
Definitely a lot happening across different fronts.
And if you want to dig deeper into any specific area, we mentioned the links, the SORA integrated plan, Fujiwara details, even that CBDC case study on Cambodia. They're good resources.
Absolutely, plenty there for a deeper dive.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What are the main takeaways? What should you, our listener, maybe be thinking about or even doing next, depending on how involved you are?
Okay, let's break it down. If you're a potential validator, now's the time to maybe spin up a Fujiwara Testnet node. Get familiar with it. And watch out for bug bounties after the Explorer launches chance to contribute and earn.
Right, for builders.
Builders, developers, think about submitting an RFP in the next wave, especially if you have ideas around, say, zero-knowledge proofs, which seem to be in demand.
Good tip for token holders.
If you hold XOR, definitely read the fee model draft proposal, understand how it might affect things, think about the implications, and get ready to vote thoughtfully in the governance referendum. Your vote counts.
Okay. And what about institutions?
For any institutions listening, perhaps banks or funds interested in this tech, you can actually reach out now to inquire about getting Sandbox access to the Sovereign Nation pilot. They have NDAs ready.
So, tailored actions for different interests. It really does all seem to tie back to that core SORA idea you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that line, money should be a public utility, not a byproduct of private debt.
It's a powerful statement.
It really underpins everything they seem to be trying to build, this open foundational layer for a potentially different kind of financial future.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is to really chew on that idea. What would it look like if money, or at least its rails, functioned more like a public utility? How could that change decentralized finance or even national economies interacting with digital assets?
It's a big question, and one that these developments are actively exploring. Definitely a space to keep watching.
Indeed. Thanks for walking us through all that complexity. Lots to digest.
My pleasure. It's certainly an interesting project to follow.
We'll definitely keep tracking it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.